I do believe people have gut instinct, but I believe that gut is trained. Really going to be based on the story you've been telling yourself. You're telling me I could change my gut reaction if I change my story? Yes.
You had a big exit with Quest. Impact theory, this podcast has blown up.
12 years old, realized I want to be a filmmaker. I meet these two very successful entrepreneurs, and they said, if you want to control the art, you need to control the resources, so you should get into business and get rich. I thought it would take 18 months. It took 15 years, but it worked. I leave Quest on a Monday, start Impact Theory on a Tuesday. Film essentially went away as a meaningful art form. The underlying drive to use storytelling to embed ideas in the minds of young people is really the goal. Where would I do that now? The answer was video games. I think America is in the grips of a values crisis. Through story, I want to introduce ideas of a growth mindset, personal responsibility, a desire to build, to grow. I did not understand how the world worked, and I was doing things that I thought were the right things, and they were moving me backwards. Convinced by my mid-20s, I wasn't smart or talented enough to achieve my dreams. I read a book about the brain, and it said, brain plasticity is real, it works. Okay, I'm going to act as if this is true, even if it's not. I developed what I now call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that if I put time and energy into getting better at something, I will actually get better. The thing that we'll probably disagree the most hard on, and I think trying to convince each other would be a mistake, but I'll just share that I think when people hear the following statement, they're going to be like, yeah, that's empirically true.
Well, it's so cool to have you here. Like, I got the email that you were coming into town and you're kind of deep in your unlearning process. And so I've been familiar with your work. My best friends turned me on to you years ago. They're huge fans. And so when I told them that you were going to be coming to Austin and potentially sitting down, they were super stoked. And I was super stoked. And as I was like preparing for the podcast, like one thing like came up for me, and I'm like, I just want to start with this because you had a big exit with Quest. You've had Impact Theory. This podcast has blown up. You're well known now. But some people who don't know you, they come up to you and say, oh, so what do you do? Because it's something I struggle with because it never comes out. It never feels right, no matter how cool I make it sound. So when someone asks you, what do you do? Like, how do you respond to that?
I own a media company. That's it.
It's that simple.
Just very, very simple. Yeah. Just keep it straightforward. If somebody wants to go deeper, we can certainly talk about all the different ways that manifests or why I do it. But yeah, in terms of business, I have a media company. We do 3 things. That's it. And just try to keep it real focused. So, yeah.
So can you walk me through how you went from Quest into today? This is a media company. You have the podcast, obviously. I'm sure that was part of the path, but what inspired you to turn it into a media company?
Well, I'll speed run it for you. And if there's anything interesting, we can certainly push deep. 12 years old, realized I want to be a filmmaker. And I end up writing a screenplay. It gets turned into a feature film starring Michael Madsen, who starred in a lot of Quentin Tarantino movies. The process was brutal, just absolutely creatively devastating for me, and hated it from top to bottom to the point where I considered taking my name off of it. Like, it was really not fun. And I jumbled the order a little bit to make it easy to explain. But anyway, to keep with the jumbled order, I meet these two very successful entrepreneurs who I actually was already working with before this time anyway. And they said, listen, you're coming to the world with your hand out. And if you want to control the art, you need to control the resources. So you should get into business and get rich. And I was like, yeah, that sounds perfect. And I thought it would take 18 months. It took 15 years, but it worked. And so that was Quest, which again is its own long story because that wasn't our first company. We'd done another one before that. And so while I'm doing Quest specifically so that I can generate the funds so that I can build my own studio. And so I leave Quest on a Monday, start Impact Theory on a Tuesday as like a make good on why I had gotten into business in the first place. It was always about media. But in the intervening 15 years, film essentially went away as a meaningful art form. And so that left me asking the question, okay, how is this going to manifest? The underlying drive to use storytelling to embed ideas in the minds of young people is really the goal. And I was like, well, where would I do that now? The answer was video games. And so as a studio, we're known for what we do on YouTube aimed at adults, ironically, since I really think of my core driver as being creating video games for kids. And it took us a while to get to that crystallized realization that gaming would be step one instead of step last. I always assumed that would be the last thing we did. But for the last 3 years, we've been developing a game. It'll take us about 2 more years to get into what's known as early release. And then hopefully this will be the game that I'm working on forever. Commerce has a way of making those decisions for you. So we'll see. This could die in 2 years. But that would be the goal, is that this is the technology that I'll continue to work on for the next 15, 20 years in whatever way that looks like. AI is going to change things so dramatically. It's really hard to predict, but that would be the goal. And that at the core of the game, you're playing a game. Make no mistake about that. This is not meant to be edutainment. It is a video game. But at the core of it, much like Star Wars has a core of empowerment, I want the game to have that same kind of idea. So you're encountering characters that give advice that if you take in your real life, it will make your life better. And so that's the plan.
Okay, so many threads. So many threads, and I love it. I want to just pull on the video game thread because, like we're going to talk about what's most alive for us today, which is amazing. And for me, my 19-year-old son, over the last year was working for Cutco, the knife company, and had like an amazing experience learning all the practical pieces of building rapport and in kind of what they do with their management training program. And then he opened up an office and realized that was the end of the road for him. Did it, frankly, hated it.
Right. Fair.
Okay, perfect. So he comes to me and my wife, but particularly to me. He says, Dad, he's been playing this game, Geometry Dash. Are you familiar with it?
I am not, no.
It's one of these, the character or whatever moves through this kind of maze that goes horizontal and you click so you don't die. Like a very advanced Frogger type thing.
Yeah.
And there's like incredible music, EDM. There's like the visuals are incredible. And so he's been playing this game for years. And you can imagine as a dad, it's like, I never got it. You're fucking spending all this time.
Right.
But I've been opening up and I'm like, okay, so what's going on with this thing, right? So he's like, Dad, I really want to create content around this video game. And I had the thoughts like, what is this? How's it going to make money? And I went to, how's it going to make money and all this? I didn't share this with him, but
Sure.
But I let those stories come and I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, that's not what he's saying. He's saying, I want to do this. And what I've shared with my kids is I just want you to find something that like you were so excited to get out of bed in the morning without my filter over it. Like, how can that get you out of bed? Right. And so he tells me this and he starts creating content and then he starts bringing me into the world and I'm open to it. And I had the realization quite recently that this is actually his art. And I feel like we're all here to create and express and share our art. And that could be through building a company, could be through someone doing artwork. But for him, he's live streaming at times the game, people are watching and he's showing their art. It's like when I watch football now, I watch Patrick Mahomes. He's getting paid a lot of money, sure. But he's expressing his art because he can do things that no other people can do. And so people are amazed at that. And so all this, I'm just super curious about your orientation to video games because a lot of people my age who grew up with video games and then, the iPhones came out, we just like the screens and we have so much judgment around that.
Right.
But my son fucking blew my mind and I'm so open to it and I see him so alive and I see him learning about himself through this game and the connection with the other people in the community. And he has these interviews with some of the top players in the game and I watch him be super present. Like, holy shit, this kid, he's doing what he loves.
Mm.
And it doesn't look like anything I would have expected. And so what can you share about the video game space that the olds like me, you know, the kids, the guys and men and women who have kids that are into video games, that allows them like to let these kids express who they are?
Okay, so I'll give it to you twofold. So one, I think that if you have a kid who's addicted to the video game, you have a problem. You have all the problems you think you have. And so you need to make sure that the relationship with the thing that they're interacting with remains healthy. I think of video games in the same way that I would think of a sport meets a book or a movie, where it is a thing that you actively do, you participate in. It is a sport of, a type. And if you can understand why your kid might get just completely passionate about playing soccer or football or tennis or whatever, that translates 1-for-1 into a video game. So you're trying to master something, you're trying to get good at it. You may not see it as a physical expression, but it's that same competition, improvement, and going on that cycle. And when you're living in a tamed world, which we all do in the West, you're, especially as a young man, you're looking for an outlet where something is hard, it's very challenging, you can push yourself, it's very difficult. And video games are so much more optimized than sports to be deeply engaging, because they have a world, they have mythology. And so the way that somebody who's into soccer or football can know the players, like you were just naming Mahomes, you can know the human players that are in it, but there's another layer, which is you get to know the characters inside the game as well. And you can have a relationship with them, and that's going to get deeper. And so for a kid that's prone to respond to a book or comics or movies, they're going to be a hyper responder to that lore, the world inside of the game. Now, some of the games also let you create inside of the game itself. And if you've never built inside of a video game, you don't understand the pure intoxication of feeling like you can create on a civilizational scale. And that can be very intoxicating. So you take the greatest game of all time, it's a game called Minecraft.
He was deep into it and fucking blew my mind with what he was creating.
Understandably so. And it is, it's one of those where I'll stand in front of any audience and defend the true greatness of that game and why it would draw people in so incredibly. If you have a self-directed kid, I think Minecraft is a test. And kids who like Minecraft are very self-directed. They're going to do very well in life. People that get into Minecraft and they're like, well, this is boring. Like, what am I supposed to do? They're going to struggle. And when you go inside Minecraft and you suddenly realize every block in that game is yours to do whatever you want with. And so you can build, create, and the game is it's built on a set of rules. And once you understand the rules, then you really can master it and you can turn that world into something you want. The world of Minecraft is 8 times the size of Earth. I know a lot of people don't quite know what that means because it's digital, but if you take a meter in real life and just say there's a correlate inside the game, the Earth is however many meters, and every unique Minecraft world is 8 times that size. And so they can go build and create portals, realize that there are like alternate worlds inside of Minecraft that you can like work your way to being able to access. It's really, really incredible. All born out of these very simple rules. And so when you create a game, you realize, whoa, wait a second, I get to define these worlds. I get to set the physics. I get to set the rules that give birth to these worlds. Anyway, so that's way number one, is you can think of it like a sport. And so they're getting into it in that same way, but there's this added layer of lore and things like that they can get into. And just like a community will rise up around a sports team, communities will rise up around the games. And so you have a sense of belonging and all of that. And so imagine if you could enter your favorite sport at the drop of a hat and you have it in your pocket at all times. And so you don't need to go to a soccer pitch or anything like that. It's there, it's ready. Okay. The second way is imagine when AI does what people think AI is going to do, and you suddenly have a artificial intelligence that is better than you at everything, and it's embodied. And so you look around and you see 8 billion people and you see 10 billion robots, and those robots are all smarter than you by an order of 30 magnitude. So, I mean, it's just, it is a level of intelligence gap that we can't fathom. It's going to rob people of meaning and purpose. And so when that happens, it will usher in a material utopia and a spiritual like catastrophe. And so somehow, some way, we're going to have to address that. And I think that there's going to be three things that will happen in that moment. Number one is what I call the new Amish. And so there will be people that completely reject technology. They realize the spiritual catastrophe and they look backwards and they say, cool, we're going to do that. Then there are going to be people that look forward and they're going to say, all of life is like a survival crafting game like Minecraft. I want to go to Mars and I want to start over. It's like loading up a new Minecraft world. You're not safe anymore. Everything is hard and you've got to figure out how to do it and survive. And it's what they call a roguelike game. And if you die, you lose everything and that's it. It's game over. But some people are going to do that. And so they'll go to build a colony on Mars or on the moon, whatever, because they need that struggle. The human mind is designed for that struggle. And then other people, and I think this one answers the Fermi paradox, which is, hold on a second, a universe this big, there would be billions of planets that are just like Earth. How is it that there's no advanced civilizations that we've come into contact with? And I think the answer is any society that advances to that point where they can bend space-time to be able to travel here, they're going to have realized long before you get to that it takes far less energy to create simulated worlds, and that simulated worlds give you the infinite ability to create something that's sort of perfectly tuned to be the exact right level of difficulty, the exact right level of danger, the ability to start over, like all the things that we wish were true of life. And so you can build them into these virtual worlds. And that's where I'm at. And so when I say that I want to be doing this for the next 20, 30 years, I'm assuming that AI advances the technology so far that people are essentially inhabiting them in the way that Neo inhabited the Matrix. In that, he was not confused. He knew when he was in a simulated world. He knew when he was in the physical, real world. But because when he was in a simulated world, he was aware of it, he was awake, he essentially became superhuman. And so that will be the kind of world certainly I want to explore. It's certainly the kind of world that I want to build. I understand it's only one of the three paths. And I understand that maybe that never happens in AI asymptotes and it just never gets where we think it's going to go. And in which case I'll just keep developing video games the way that we do now. But that to me is why. And given that we've always used story, literally for however long humans have existed, we've always used story as a way to pass on values. I think America is in the grips of a values crisis. We no longer have shared narrative. We are not passing along en masse values that will make our kids successful emotionally into the future. I think because life has really become too easy that we can start teaching them things that are just absolutely nonsensical in the real world. And so through story, I want to introduce the ideas of a growth mindset, personal responsibility, a desire to build, to grow. And so, yeah, that's the plan.
So you've thought about this a little bit.
Yeah, I think about this obsessively.
Hell yeah. Here's a question. Just in the context of all this and like the things that kids are learning that are just like, why are we doing this anymore? I just think about the school system, like they're learning shit that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so how do we solve for that?
And we've already solved for it. It just comes down to the babysitting factor of school complicates matters, but AI will teach your kid in a tailored fashion everything that they could ever want to know. And it will just come down to the parents to decide these are the 17 things or whatever that you need to learn in the next 18 years. They'll have little to nothing to do with the things that they've historically been taught. It's going to be around, again, a growth mindset, problem solving, thinking from first principles, economics, entrepreneurship. Like if they had all of those things, they would be in control of how to parse the world. Once you know how to parse the world, then it's like, okay, I know how to solve these problems. I know how to figure out a path. We don't teach kids that now, largely because you can't get like when people ask, like, why don't we teach economics in school? And I'm like, because anybody that understands economics is off getting rich.
Yeah.
And they're not going to come back to a middle school or high school and teach a bunch of kids that are, ignoring them and are a pain in the ass. And so they're just going to be like, halfway through the first semester, like, oh, I'm just going to go back to making money with this. And if you guys don't want to listen, no problem. So much of this information is already out there for free on the internet. People don't want to aggregate it. So AI is like the final thing. If you're not willing to ask the AI questions and like actually learn, I can't help you. But literally, I don't want to hear out of anybody's mouth that we can't find teachers, the information's not available, my kid didn't grow up in the right area. All that's bullshit. The only thing that is true, you either put the time in to engage with the AI or you do not. But it is trained on the entire corpus of human knowledge, and it's just a question of whether you'll interact. Now, intellect matters, and some people just are not going to be smart enough to make use of it. It is what it is. So to give you one of my more controversial beliefs, no one should ever slow down so somebody else can lead. No one should ever make space for somebody else. They should simply say, I'm not going to stop anybody. Anybody should be able to do what they want. I'm not going to trip anybody up. I'm not going to slow my own development down. I'm not going to demure myself to somebody else. I'm going to get as powerful as I can in life. And in an honorable way, I'm going to move forward and build things that hopefully make the world better for myself and others, which is precisely what I mean by honorable. But all of this stuff about slow down, create space, that's all nonsensical and is just totally anathema to the way that the world actually works. The world is actually violent. The world is actually a competition. And we have been the hegemon for so long, we forget that we're actually competing with the rest of the world. And that confusion, lie, however you want to think about it, is about to evaporate via something called Thucydides' trap between the US and China. So people better brace themselves for that one. So yeah, all that's going to go away. People need to teach their kids to learn, to be aggressive, to be ambitious, to be hungry, to want to build, to understand why America became the most dominant global force over the last 250 years. And if they don't understand that we got here by outperforming other people, then they're going to be very confused by what comes.
Dude, okay. I'm tracking all of it. And it's like, I want to go back to this US-China thing because, like, let's talk about that.
Sure.
And just briefly, do you see, at what point in the future do you see school enrollments going down significantly with people adopting what you're saying? Because it makes perfect sense.
Not until you have robots. So people need a babysitter. That's like the real problem. People need someone who's like, physically, I need you to look after my kids.
Yeah.
So school is going to continue to be a thing, but will school rapidly adopt two things that I think are really useful? School vouchers, so parents can go, I don't want my kid going to that school. That school does not deliver results. I want them going to this school. That's, to me, is just, we have a moral obligation in this country to offer that. And then we have an obligation to do that, again, through Thucydides' trap, us v. China. If we don't do that, we're going to lose. So kids are our greatest resource. We have to teach them. We have to make sure that we mine for intelligence. And right now we're trapping intelligence in the inner cities. It's absolutely ridiculous. Right now, the number one predictor of your future success isn't your IQ. It's the zip code you grow up in. Anyway, AI should make all of that irrelevant, but school vouchers would be huge. And then second, schools should be adopting AI as fast as they can. There's a school here in Texas that's doing everything they can to promote. We teach our kids with AI 2 days a week, and we're already pulling ahead in standardized test scores of like every school in America. It's wild. So the answers are already there. It's just a question of whether people will avail themselves of the data that shows what's actually working, or if they'll keep telling themselves a lie. We'll find out.
There's a lot of programming out there, right? I mean, we've all grown up with it, and it's just like hard to break free of that for a lot of people. I think here in Austin, I'm quite fortunate to be surrounded with people who are thinking outside the box, and they're really questioning a lot of things. Which is probably the large reason why I started the podcast, because I was meeting all these people. It's like, my mind's being blown, and I'm sharing it with my buddies who live up in Chicago. I'm like, I need to like get this information out on a larger platform than this text chain or phone calls. And so it's been a deep exploration for me into really questioning everything. And, I'm curious, like for you, what is like, have you always been a questioner of things and looking at things differently? Or was there a moment that things started to shift for you? Because a lot of people would hear about your success and be like, oh, he's got all this money from this Quest company and da 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 da. And they just kind of maybe put you in a box. And so, like, I'm like curious, like, what has been underneath, like, what the kind of more known successes that people would know about you? Like, where's the tough stuff?
So I've always had a pathological problem with authority. So that probably helps.
Amazing.
I wouldn't say that I had the like question everything mentality until I was in my early to mid 20s. And I wouldn't have been able to explain it this way then, but this is certainly what was happening. I was sliding towards depression because I did not understand how the world worked. And I was doing things that I thought were the right things, and they were moving me backwards. And they were leaving me feeling completely lost, completely helpless. I did not know how to break into the film industry, which is the one thing that I really wanted. And so that gap of like, how do I do this? And then my daily life was selling insurance door to door, working remedial jobs, and my dream life felt impossible. And I did not understand how to cross that chasm. And then this is the late 90s, and there's something now that everybody just knows to be true, which is brain plasticity. But at the time, it was really contested. So people weren't sure if you could, quote unquote, teach an old dog new tricks. So at the time, I believed that I was dealt a hand of cards, and I was either talented or I wasn't. I was either smart or I wasn't. And so life was just about figuring the answers of those questions out. And that was terrifying because I had grown convinced by my mid 20s that I wasn't smart or talented enough to achieve my dreams. And so I would literally lay on the floor of my unfurnished apartment because I couldn't afford to furnish it, and just lay there hopeless. And I read a book about the brain, and it said, hey, brain plasticity is real, it works. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to act as if this is true, even if it's not. And by acting as if it were true, I developed what I now call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that if I put time and energy into getting better at something, I will actually get better. And so now it's like, what do you want to do? I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a game designer. I want to whatever, fill it in. I want to be an entrepreneur. Cool. You suck at it now. That doesn't matter. Go get good. And so once I realized, oh, I am average, but I'm an average human, and humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. So my job is to put myself in whatever that situation is that forces the brain to adapt. And so I just found that if I relentlessly threw myself at a skill and was willing to measure myself against real world results, I could actually get better. But I had to lower my emotional defenses, known as the psychological immune system, which will tell you none of this is your fault. It's all something else. It's the external world. It's your parents. It's the government's holding you back. People don't want somebody of your skin color to succeed, whatever bullshit you tell yourself. And so I was like, I had to drop all of that and just go, everything in life is an exact reflection of my choices, my talents, my abilities. So if I want to be somewhere else, I have to develop different talents, abilities. I have to make different choices. So cool. And that's what I set out to do. And I was like, if it is to be, it is up to me. And I just went ham trying to stack skills. And this is one of the things I just cannot get people to understand. Skills have utility. And so the reason that you read a book, the reason that you learn something is strictly because it will allow you to outperform somebody else in real life. You'll be able to do a thing they can't do. But as soon as I say that, people get squeamish because they don't like the idea that life's a competition. But it is. So it's one of those long ago. And this makes me sad because I used to get made fun of because I was so like, no, we got to help everybody. And people were like, bro, you can't. Some people just are not going to want to do it, let alone be able to do it. And so now I'm just like, look, this is the information. You can say what you want about me. You can try to clown on me or whatever. I'll be over here getting richer. So it's like, I'll tell people exactly what I do. But most people won't try it. Fair enough?
I think there's so many important things you said there, but like one of them in particular is what you just said. Like you weren't looking for external validation about what you believed, and they said you're fucking crazy. You're like, okay, I'm just cool. I'm trying to share what's working for me. Got it. I'm gonna go do it, and then you do it. And so many times we're just like, oh fuck, this guy is really smart and he doesn't think my idea is good, so like it's not good. And we hear all these sayings, right? Like you can manifest whatever you want, and whatever you believe is what the universe is going to give you. And it feels so like esoteric and out there. And it's like when you get down to the root of it, that's what you're saying. You just have this belief. It's literally a belief. It's a prayer. It's whatever you want to call it. That if I want to get better at something, I just need to acquire the skills to get better at it, and I can. And I think we get so caught up in what we can't do and how someone's so much better. Am I ever going to be as good a podcaster as that person? Am I going to have as many followers? Am I going to be able to create a company like this? It's like, it's not going to look like any of that. And we try to fit ourselves into a box of, okay, this is how this guy's doing it. I'm going to try to reverse engineer what he did. And it's not our path. And so I love that you're just like taking full ownership and accountability for what's happening in your reality at all times. You're not the victim. It's not the government. It's not your parents were shitty. And it's not any of that. It's good to recognize those things and be aware of them. Like, that's interesting. And if I feed into those narratives, you see it a lot in the self-help work and the men's work and all of that. It's like, oh, your parents. And so we can get stuck in that narrative and keep carrying that. And I know for me, when I started to let go of all of those things, it's like important to understand where maybe the wounding came from and the beliefs that I developed as a 7-year-old that carried me into my 50s, right? And the beauty of those beliefs when I was 7 is they fucking created some incredible skills for me because they were survival. There was like, I needed to earn love, I thought. So I did all these things. And when I realized that the story behind it was not true, I literally went back and rewrote the story. And so it changed my relationship with my parents. Amazing. I kept my fucking superpowers and I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. And so I think it's important to recognize where the conditioning comes from so that we can undo those agreements. And then we're free. Like I think I'm sure there are many things, but two of the things that come up most strongly for me and like what we want is we want connection. We want to have that intimacy, that sacred space with people, whether it's our partner, our family, our friends, our community. And really, like, we want freedom in the sense of turning off all the shit up in the mind, all the stories. And as those stories for me have fallen away, I start to recognize that I've always been creating my own reality. I was just doing it unconsciously. And I was creating all this, on some level shit, but it's what I needed to experience so that when I worked fucking years through the shit and I came through it, it's almost like, just think about the Shawshank Redemption. It comes through and he's like free. And it's like, that's the first time I thought of it. Like, I feel this utter freedom of choice because we always have choice. We just don't realize it. And for me, I just become accepting of everything that's happening because you know what? It's happening. Classic, Ram Dass talks about as Buddhist, like, the cause of our suffering is not being acceptance of what's happening. And so as I've studied that stuff for a long time, it's like, I got it up in my head, but it hadn't been a lived experience. And so just like keep showing up to all the different things that I was showing up to open myself up to show my blind spots, whether it was plant medicine, a meditation retreat, going in the cold plunge, like just all the things that I was going to like fix myself. But ultimately I just like, what are my blind spots? Like, what don't I know? What am I believing that is not true? What rules am I following that are bullshit. And so these two things for me, it's like connection, and this sense of freedom, and not like we're in America, we're free. It's like just unburdened by all the shit. And it's for me, it comes down to the stories I believe.
Mm.
So when I start to like create from a very conscious, grounded, centered place, not like I want to make $1 million on this thing. That's not, people get it wrong. It's like, I just want like a little bit more freedom. What would that mean? I'd be starting to question all the things. Those rules have felt comfortable and safe, but it's a fucking prison, and we don't realize it until we start undoing some of these rules. And so everything you're saying is just landing so clearly. It's just like you're just fucking taking ownership. It's like we all have that opportunity. And a lot of us are fucking terrified to do it because, you know what? My life's okay. I should be happy. I'm making a bunch of money and I've got a nice wife and my kids are pretty cool. And it's not like I've been there and it's not it. It's amazing to have that. Ask more of yourself and just trust that your gut knows. And I feel like you've been led by your gut so much. And you just trusted. The fact that you read this book and you just decided to believe in it. I don't think you were doing math in your head. You're just like, I just got goosebumps. This feels right.
It's funny. I'm the exact opposite.
No shit.
I'm doing calculus. I'm thinking, why would this work? What's the logic? What is the path of cause and effect? Yeah, it's one of those. I do believe people have gut instinct, but I believe that gut is trained, and it's really going to be based on the story you've been telling yourself, to your point. And so I'm like, okay, well, hold on then. If my gut reactions are based on my experience and the story that I'm telling myself about it, you telling me I could change my gut reaction if I change my story? Yes. Okay, well then I need to take very conscious control of this. This is one of those areas where I know that people don't see the world the same as I do.
I'm so curious about this. Yes, let's go here.
But I think that for some people, if you're not able to intellectually connect with why your body feels the way that it feels, then I get it. You're going to steer by emotion. I have not found that to be very useful in my life because oftentimes the emotions don't lead me to my goal. And if the emotion isn't going to lead me to my goal, then I have to translate it into something that's very conscious. So I can say, okay, what do I want to actually get to my goal? And if that means that I have to set aside anger or I have to set aside fear or whatever, then I'm going to set it aside. Doesn't mean that I ignore the feelings. I try to figure out what they are, what's causing them, like what's the root of this. And if the root of this feeling is in line with where I'm trying to go, fantastic. But if it's out of step, then I'm certainly going to pay attention to that.
Okay, so perfect, because I have such a different lived experience, and so I'm super curious here, because for me, my experience has been there's this programming layered in, and I feel like underneath it is the gut, the true knowing, and as I've dropped these shields or whatever, it's become more pronounced, it's become more readily available. And there's this trust that's happening that in a lot of ways I can't explain. And I think I got caught up in my younger days in not being able to explain it. And so I didn't trust it because so many people want to understand why. And I was like, I don't fucking know why, but this is what I'm doing. This is why I did this thing. I just did it. And so I'm curious to get your kind of analysis on how we train that gut feeling. Because again, and I'm going to be very clear, like we all have our own experience. And so I'm not here to say, well, this is actually what it is, because that's my experience. It's like,
that really might be true. So the thing I think people need to recognize is that we are all trapped inside of our own frame of reference. And part of your frame of reference, I mean, it's really three parts: beliefs, values, and your physiology. And so let's say that for me, my gut is very ambiguous. It's not something that I even know like exactly where it's trying to point me. But when I pull it into my intellectual mind and I layer a story on top of it, I'm able to get clarity. I understand what I'm aiming at. I can point myself there. I'm obsessed with physics and cause and effect. And so, hey, that all works for me. And maybe for you, it's like, it's so self evident at the level of gut. When I follow my gut, great things come. Yeah, then that makes sense. If following my gut ended up taking me everywhere I ever wanted to be, then I too would follow my gut. So this is where people need to be careful of like one size fits all. The only thing I'll say that's pretty universal is if you don't know where you're trying to end up, you're always going to be lost. So figure out where you want to end up and then work backwards. What are the behaviors, thought patterns, beliefs, whatever daily habits that you need to do that are actually going to help you get there? And then adjust course. So if listening to your gut is like just delivering the life you always wanted, hey, nothing for you to change. If listening to your gut makes you feel confused, you're going in weird directions, or you find yourself just being led around by your emotions, okay, try something else. But I don't think there's a right way and a wrong way other than if you have a goal and what you're doing isn't taking you there, I would say, well, by definition, you were doing the wrong thing if you want to end up at that goal. That's the only time where I think people are maybe not paying close enough attention. They either haven't defined where they want to be, or they're not being honest about whether they're making progress towards it. But gut, head to me is irrelevant. You've got different options. I just see when I look out at humanity, the problem I see more often than not is people who live their life in their emotions, and their emotions take them to very bizarre destinations that had I asked them, where are you trying to end up? It would not be where they have actually ended up. And so that's where I'm always like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I love that. And what I would just, I'm curious about is this emotions, because I think those like gut and emotions are two separate things. And so if people are being led by their emotions, I agree. It's generally, it's lacking both the mind and the gut. And so if we just entertain that as an idea, one of the things, and it just was my lived experience where I think a lot of people struggle is because they're not just they're in their head.
Mm.
And I've been there. And it's like in the head lives all the stories. And if, the classic, the mind is a wonderful servant and a terrible master. And when that thing is driving the ship, it can lead you down some places that you don't necessarily want to go. I do believe they're all important to experience. There's a reason. I really fully believe that everyone is exactly where they need to be, because I've been in some fucking shitty places in my life where I'm just like, why am I here? I had it all, right? I had this idea. I had it all in this particular framework, and my life was fucking falling apart. Like, why did I make these decisions? I would have been fine. And it's because like I can say today, like that was fucking huge for me to go through that and make it through that and learn about myself in those experiences. So I'm very careful not to like have anyone think that they're in the wrong place, because I've been in those places where I feel ashamed. I don't want to see anybody. I'm embarrassed. I'm a fraud. I'm all the things that, you don't want to be. And it's like, I needed to experience all of it. And so with that in mind, I'm just curious to go back to this idea of emotions. Like, how does that for you connect to the gut? Because I can't work out exactly. For me, I get a feeling like I don't feel emotional when I'm led by my gut. I feel just super clear. It's like, oh, when I get out of my head, it's like this thing came up. It's like, it's not at all what I'm trying to work out with the analysis and trying to thread the needle and do this. And it's like, I'm pretty good with the analytical stuff. I would not profess to be as like dialed in as you are, but like I'm pretty sharp, but like there's a time for me to use that analytical mind. And when I'm able to drop it and just feel into what feels right, it's just super clear and easy. Doesn't mean it's not hard work that goes involved, but it's like, oh, this is it. This feels right.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like you're using a tool that you have and that it's doing wonderful things for your life. So I've got no beef with that. The way that I think about it is there's conscious and there's subconscious. And your subconscious mind, as they say, is able to process data faster and vaster than your conscious mind. But it speaks to you in sensation. So you differentiate between emotion and feeling, which I don't make that distinction. So for me, there is simply conscious and unconscious. And my body speaks to me because it's pulling in a lot more data than I'll be able to pull in consciously. So it's got all this data and it says, feel this way, feel expansive, feel contractive, feel aggressive, wanting to push forward, wanting to pull back, all of those things. And if doing that leads you where you want to go, phenomenal. I've got no problem with that. You can, if you selectively damage the areas of the brain designed for emotions, the person will not be able to make a decision. That's not me guessing. There's been studies done on this. And people that do have that damage to their brain, they seem normal in every way until you ask them to make a decision, and then they can't. They can tell you why one decision would be better than the other, but then when you say, please pick one, they literally cannot do it. So emotion is that thing that tips you over and says, okay, yeah, that's true about that, but here's the emotion. Now actually go do it. And that's why I say controlling the story is like if somebody's trying to pull a different gear, like their emotions or their gut is constantly leading them to somewhere they don't want to be, try changing the story because it will change the response you have to the stimulus. Going back to the thing that we'll probably disagree the most hard on, and I think trying to convince each other would be a mistake, but I'll just share where I'm at. I don't think there is such a thing as nobody's meant to be anywhere. I think that some people are able to go, ooh, I'm in this really weird, bad place, and I'm going to use this to my advantage. And they learn the lessons that are there to be learned, and they leverage that to go somewhere better. But I think when people hear the following statement, they're going to be like, yeah, that's empirically true. Life breaks most people, which means that those people were obviously not where they were meant to be unless the desired outcome was to be broken. I don't think most people know how to parse the world. I think the older people get, the more scar tissue they stack. And for every person that really does seem liberated in their old age, there's another person who feels isolated, lonely, lost, full of regret. And I would say that that person has been telling themselves the wrong story their whole life. And if you believe that there is some known outcome that you're supposed to achieve, life is probably going to be pretty rough. Because take Quest, for instance. I always say this. I could walk you through day by day what we did to be successful. And if you try to mimic it day by day, you will fail. And the reason you will fail is timing. And so getting timing right on purpose is very difficult. And so a big part of my success was, yes, worked very hard. Yes, we had very good ideas, but also we just happened to be born at the right time, to be in the right place while making the right decisions and all that. But repeating that kind of success is very difficult. There's a reason that there's, one Elon Musk. So that kind of thing just plays into all of this. And if you're not born at the right time, there are certain things that just aren't going to work out for you. So yeah, I would much rather see people go, nothing happens for a reason, but I can make meaning out of anything. And depending on the meaning that I make will make me feel one way or the other, which will make me act in a certain way. And ultimately my actions are all that matters. But for instance, if I end up getting paralyzed later today, I've got two choices. I can just spend all my time lamenting the choices that I made that led me to that. Or I can be like, okay, word, like I'm paralyzed. Now what? Now how do we make this the most interesting thing that ever happened to me, the best thing that ever happened to me? And by shifting that frame, I'm not going, oh, this was meant to happen. This is exactly. No, because most people that get paralyzed are going to spend the rest of their lives miserable, unhappy, because they just cannot psychologically get over that. But if you reframe it, it's like, okay, cool. I'm going to get something out of this. This is going to be dope. Even just saying that is going to make you feel differently. So yeah. Anyway, that is not me trying to persuade you. Like your life is obviously going very well. So it's like, it just comes down to what works.
Yeah. And I don't think that it's like a agree or disagree thing. Cause what you're saying is like, I understand it. And just for one point, I think we were saying the same things with gut and emotions. I was just thinking emotions was more emotional kind of like, but I think what we're saying is like, you're just being led by like what emotionally you feel called to do. Is that right?
I think it is emotion. I think it's people that feel something and they feel very confident in, oh, when I feel it in my body, I know what to do.
Got it.
Versus being able to do cause and effect and go, okay, this feels weird, but I know based on cause and effect, this is more likely to work. And therefore I'm going to do it. In entrepreneurship, that has been the lesson that I've learned over and over and over, is a lot of times the thing that I want to do, I have the most emotional pull towards, that my gut is just like, yes, do this, doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I go, okay, hold on a second, just map this out. What's really going on? So for instance, selling video games to millennials is wildly different than selling games to young kids. And so if I were to go try to sell games to millennials, I'd really have to like get into the way that they think. Otherwise, the things that I feel, the things that would work on me would not work for them at all, because their experiences growing up have been so different than mine. But I can map from cause and effect a way that predicts what I actually see in the real world. So as a speed run of this, millennials got shafted so hard by changes that we made to the economy that it became impossible for them to get onto the American dream, to get into the American dream. And they were the first generation that happened to, so they were very confused. They were promised something, it didn't come true, and everybody just said, you guys aren't working hard enough, you're lazy, you're whiny, or whatever. And Gen Z now is in just as bad of a position, maybe worse, but they understand that they've been screwed over. So they're not confused. And so when you watch, so that makes a prediction about an anger, a frustration, a feeling that they've been iced out, that the system is working against them. Now, if knowing that, you now go watch the gaming content that millennial commentators make about games, you're going to hear that top to bottom, just like all the way. It's wild. And so once you understand the cause and effect that would lead them to think that way, you can predict the kind of content they would make, and therefore can predict the kind of things you would need to say, do, build in order to make content for them. But I can't emotion my way to it because I didn't grow up like that. Right. So my feelings are all extremely different. That games are the most joyful thing ever. I grew up in an era where people you just didn't have the ability to get addicted to it because our parents were all kicking us out of the house. Like my parents made me buy my own Nintendo. So I had to like get a job. So it was like all of that stuff just made it way harder to get into gaming. There was no professional gaming. You got made fun of if you were a gamer. So it was like just so different. So I didn't grow up with a fear of becoming addicted to games. All that stuff paints my emotions for this thing that other people have dramatically different emotions for. So as an entrepreneur, I've had to realize, okay, my emotions give me a good N of 1, but they don't give me necessarily a broad sense of what everybody's going through, which is why most like really banger companies are going to be started by somebody young. It's going to come out of nowhere because they're just in step with the emotions of everyone around them. So they can steer emotionally and be in alignment. If you try to live your whole life like that, though, I find that people end up like driving off cliffs.
Yeah, no, and I hear you, and I affirm, for me, what you're saying. It's like, because ultimately they've got to work together, because you have your instincts of develop what makes sense to you, and you're trusting that, and you're like, but that's a filter that I can't reach that age group. So we need to fucking get into, like, we need to figure out, we need to do the analysis and figure out what is it. And that's where the mind is so beautiful. It's always beautiful, but it's so beautiful in allowing you to look at it differently than if you and I are going to look at that problem differently. Mm-hmm. And so you're able to parse out different things with, creating a game for millennials than I will, for just based on our own experiences and who we're going to call in to help us. And so by the way, I love what you said about Quest. It's like, as a long time investor in things, it's like so many great ideas, great execution, great founders, zero. Fuck, what happened? And you look back, it's like took on too much debt or whatever. There are things where it's like the economy was humming, these things would be banger, 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 and it didn't. And it's like, okay. So anyway, that's just an aside. But I do think, when I say that I'm led by my gut, I mean, I fucking use my mind too. Like, it's like, this feels right for me. this feels in alignment with like, this is where I want to be going. Like, yes to this. It's the full fuck yes. And then it's like, let's do the fucking math to figure out how to make this thing into a reality. So, I mean, again, we could split hairs or whatever, but what you're saying, it lands for sure. So I appreciate that. I said it earlier, but like truly, like in this moment, I know you're working on the video game, but like what's most alive for you in your life, maybe outside the context of the video game?
The easiest question in the universe, my wife. So I've been with my wife for 25 years, married for 23. There is literally nothing in this world, not the video game, nothing that brings me the depth of joy, connection, well-being that being a life partner with my wife brings me. I am the most ridiculously sappy, cheesy person you're ever going to find. Like, she is my everything. Everything I do to impress her. If she's stoked on what I'm doing, I'm perfectly happy. She's dope. So that is for sure it's the thing I think the most about. It's the thing that matters the most to me.
Amazing. I've been married 25 years as well. And I'm curious. Thank you. Yeah. Over the course of that, that time, has it always been like that? Or were there seasons where there was friction, there was separateness, not separation, but like, what are we doing? Like we're just on different paths. And I'm just asking because people who've listened to my podcast know that it's been a journey. And, today I'm grateful to say that I've never been more in love with my wife. And I'll just leave it at that. Like, I'm so grateful that she and I stayed with us through some really hard times, so I'm curious if you have much of that.
So the experiment that my wife and I wanted to run was, what does it look like if two people decide they're going to commit and share a life? So there have been hard times for sure, never considered breaking up, but there have been moments of high friction. So she went from being a stay-at-home wife to being an entrepreneur. That was really high friction. Perimenopause, for anybody that's gone through it, although honestly, that one maybe has been more difficult for her. We were so cognizant of it going into it that it felt dangerous, but didn't actually end up being as scary as we thought. But when you look at the divorce statistics around women and menopause, they're wild. So I was like, going into it, I was like, listen, you're going to go through hormonal changes and they are going to make you ask the question, why am I a part of a pair? Why am I like dealing with somebody else's problems? And I'm like, you need to be very aware of what that transition is going to feel like. And if you lean into that, it's going to create problems. And so she was very cognizant. We've obviously focused a lot on her hormonal health and all of that. That's something you have to go in with your eyes wide open. And then she's had some pretty significant health challenges at times. Again, probably far more difficult for her than it was for me. But like those are, multi-year stuff where not like every day you're dealing with it, but it's, this is like through sickness and health. So, but because we were so like just stating from the time we got together, okay, there's going to be rich and poor. There's going to be sickness and health. And like, we're going to be here through all of that. So I guess we don't freak out when it's like, okay, this is like a bumpy time. The one for her, I always forget that for her, the hardest time, there was a period for 8 months. I was working 120 hours a week for 8 months straight. And that was really hard on her. So that one, I kind of forget about that. But for her, she was like, no, that was brutal.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. So I know we're running up on the close here. I'm curious, like when you had the big exit from Quest, people say life-changing money, like what were the things that like changed in your life that over time you're like, okay, like that's not me and I'm going back to this? And what were the things that stayed consistent that helped you stay to who you are today, like grounded and just like on mission, like not just sitting back, like I got all this money, I'm just going to ride it out?
Well, thankfully, in my late 20s, the company before Quest was doing well enough compared to Quest. It was nothing, but on paper, I was a multimillionaire and I was miserable. And I was like, okay, so money being important in the company, none of that can touch the way I feel about myself. So I'm like, all that ultimately matters is, am I doing things that make me feel alive? Do I respect myself? And if not, all the money in the world isn't going to help. So I already knew that. So when we started Quest, I was like, I'm going to do this because I'm passionate about it. I know that the success may never come, but the struggle will. And so I only want to do things where if I were to fail, I still would have enjoyed the struggle. And never has that been more true with gaming, but that was certainly true back at Quest as well, where it was something I was deeply passionate about because of my family, because of my own obsession with health and nutrition. And so I was like, yeah, this may be what I end up doing with the rest of my life. I may never get on to storytelling. It is what it is, but I really believe in this. And so when it became successful, it was like, the thing I was proud of was the person that I'd become that was able to build something like that, not that it paid off. So I was like, word. And then I also understood just about the human mind that I'm a mountain climber. So my goal in life isn't to climb a mountain. I'm a mountain climber. And so I'm always going to want to climb another mountain. So when we sold Quest, I mentioned this earlier, it was like my last day at Quest was Monday. Impact Theory started on Tuesday. Because I know of myself that I'm driven by meaning and purpose. And so having money is awesome, but sitting around with a whole bunch of money it's not part of my value system to be able to respect myself. And so, and also I wouldn't want to tie it to that because then you just become so obsessed about the number. So for me, it's like, okay, I like mountain climbing. What's the next mountain I want to climb? Let's just get on it. And then I don't have an addictive personality. So for me, it's very easy to say, I always put my wife in charge. And I'm like, if we are starting to get disconnected, because she'll feel that before I will, just say something, we'll take a vacation, whatever. If it's a Tuesday, I don't care. And yeah, so I've certainly honored that when my wife puts in a request for something like that. And as I tell my team, if you forget that doing less is always an option, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And so I don't have that problem. I honestly, I don't hate saying this. This is just true. I lose respect for people that can't have 1,000 things on their to-dos list, even though they're only going to be able to get 4 things done. If having more things on your to-do list makes you like sketch out, I literally don't have time for that. Like that is such a mismanagement of one's own psychology. So I'm just like, oh, I'm starting to hate my life. That doesn't make any sense. And so I will back off. And to me, that's all of life. You're constantly trying to achieve something that's probably outside of your grasp, but you should be trying to reach for it anyway. And that's the joy. But if you value yourself for the things you can actually grab a hold of, then you're either just going to always grab things that are near, or you're always going to be miserable because you're trying to get something that's outside of your grasp. And so again, it goes back to the stories you tell yourself. For me, the story I tell myself about myself is that when I try to do something, I really give it everything I've got, but I never value myself for accomplishment. So it's like, did I make this sincere effort? If I did, then I get to feel good about myself. And if I didn't, even if I succeed, then what does that matter? I didn't really give it my all. And so that's been a phenomenal guiding light.
I mean, what more needs to be said, brother? That's how you close a show. Dude, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How can people find you? I know they'll probably already know you, but like, what do you tell people when they say, hey, where can they find you?
At Tom Bilyeu on YouTube and X. Those are the right 2 places.
Amazing. Well, thanks for being here in Austin. Thanks for being here in the studio. And it's been such a pleasure, man. I love your story and love what you shared.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.